desert has a strange way of swallowing sound. At night, when the wind dies and the coyotes stop howling, the land becomes so quiet, you can hear your own heartbeat. That's the kind of quiet Thomas Callahan lived in. Every single day for 15 years. Most folks around Arizona territory used to know him by another name. Tom Callahan, cavalry scout, Indian fighter, sharpshooter, the man who could track a horse across bare rock. But that was a lifetime ago. Now, he was just the old cowboy on the North Ridge, the one who lived alone, the one nobody visited, the one folks whispered about in town like he was half ghost already. They said he didn't talk much, didn't drink, didn't laugh, didn't even look people in the eye, just came down once a month, bought flour, beans, coffee, cartridges. Then rode back into the desert like he owed the world nothing. Truth was, Tom didn't hate people, he just got tired of burying them. War does that to a man, especially the kind of war nobody writes songs about. Back when the army hired him to track Apache bands through the mountains, he thought he was doing something noble. Thought he was protecting settlers, thought he was on the right side. But war ain't clean, and it sure ain't simple. He'd seen too much. Burned villages, children crying. Smoke rising where homes used to be, and sometimes he couldn't tell who the bad guys really were anymore. So when his service ended, he rode north. Found an empty stretch of land near a dried river bed, built himself a small ranch cabin with his own hands. One room, stone fireplace, wooden porch, a corral. But well, that was enough. Didn't need more, didn't want more, because the fewer things you have, the fewer things you can lose. Every morning followed the same rhythm. Sunrise painted the desert gold. Tom stepped outside with black coffee in a tin mug, listened. Always listened. For hoof beats, for voices, for troubled. Old habits die hard. Then chores: feed the horse, check fences, patch roof leaks, hunt rabbit, chop wood. Simple life, quiet life, safe life, or at least that's what he told himself. But nights were different. Nights were when memories crept in, when the fire crackled low and shadows danced on the walls. That faces he couldn't forget came back to sit across from him. Men he lost, people he shot, and sometimes Apache eyes staring back at him. Not angry, not hateful. Just human. That was the part that hurt most. They weren't monsters. They were just people defending their land. Same as he would single quotes v. He started realizing that delayed and guilt sticks longer than any bullet wound. So he stayed alone. Figured solitude was punishment enough. Years passed. Seasons blurred together. Dust storms, winter frost, spring cactus blooms. Nothing changed. Nobody came. Nobody ever did. Until one afternoon, the wind carried something strange. Tom was fixing fence wire when he heard it. Not coyotes, not horses. Voices. Soft. Desperate. Women. Single quotes as voices. He froze, every muscle tight. His hand instinctively reached for the rifle leaning against the post. He hated that reflex, but some habits never died. The voices got closer, footsteps dragging through sand. He climbed the ridge and looked down. And that's when he saw them. 5 figures. Walking. Not riding. Walking through the heat like ghosts, wrapped in warm blankets. Faces. Tired. Clothes dusty. And even from that distance, he recognized them. Apache. Women. No weapons. No horses. Just exhaustion. One of them stumbled and nearly fell. Another caught her. They looked like they hadn't eaten in days. Tom's chest tightened. Old memories punched him hard. Because once upon a time, if the army had seen them first, those women wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. He knew exactly what would have happened. He'd seen it. Done it. God help him. He'd done it. So now he stood there, rifle in hand, watching the past walk straight toward his front door. And for the first time in 15 years, Tom Callahan didn't know what kind of man he was anymore. The soldier, or the one trying to be better. Below him, one of the women spotted the cabin smoke. She pointed. The others looked up. Hope. Pure, fragile hope. Like children. They changed direction, started toward his ranch. Tom's heart pounded louder than any gunshot he'd ever heard. Because this wasn't a fight. This wasn't war. This was a choice. And sometimes choices are heavier than bullets. He swallowed hard, looked down at the rifle. Then slowly set it against the fence. For the first time in years, he walked toward strangers without a weapon, and he didn't even know why. As they reached the yard, they stopped several steps away. Didn't rush him, didn't beg, just stood there tired. One older woman stepped forward, her face weathered like desert rock eyes sharp proud. She spoke broken English. Soldiers burned our camp, husbands gone, children gone. We walked 3 days, please. Her voice cracked. Shelter, just one word, shelter. Not food, not money, not protection, just shelter. Tom felt something twist inside his chest. Because years ago, men like him were the reason they needed it. And suddenly, all that quiet he'd built around himself didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt cowardly. He looked at them. Really looked. Not enemies, not Apache. Just widows. 5 human beings with nowhere left to go. The fire inside his cabin crackled behind him. Warm, safe, lonely. He exhaled slowly and said something he hadn't said to anyone in years. Come inside. The first thing Tom noticed was how quiet they were. Not scared quiet, not suspicious quiet, just tired. The kind of tired that sinks into your bones. The kind where even fear feels like too much work. They stood near the porch like shadows, unsure if they were truly welcome or if this was some cruel joke. Tom cleared his throat. Didn't know why he suddenly felt nervous on his own land. Got water inside, he muttered, and a fire. They didn't move at first. Like animals that had learned kindness usually came with a trap. So Tom did something simple, something small. He turned his back to them, walked inside first, left the door open. No man planning harm leaves his back exposed. They understood that. A moment later, slow footsteps followed. Inside, the cabin felt smaller than it ever had. 1 table, 1 bed, 2 chairs, a stone fireplace. That was it. For 15 years, it had been enough. Now suddenly, it felt foolish. How's one old man supposed to host 5 lives in a place built for silence? Tom grabbed the tin bucket and filled cups from the well-water jug. Held one out. The older woman took it first. Her hands shook, not from fear, from weakness. She drank slow, careful, like every drop mattered. Then passed it to the others. No fighting. No grabbing. Just sharing. That hit him harder than anything. He'd seen starving men kill each other for less. These women still protected each other. Even now, even after everything, they stayed near the door at first. Didn't sit, didn't touch anything, like guests in a stranger's church. Tom scratched his beard awkwardly. Food's not much, he said. Beans, bread, little dried meat. To them, it might as well have been a feast. He cooked without speaking. The sound of beans simmering filled the room. Firewood popping, wind brushing the walls outside. Normal sounds. But tonight they felt different. Alive. For years, he'd eaten in silence. Now there were 5 sets of eyes watching the steam rise like it was something sacred. When he handed them bowls, one of the younger women whispered something in Apache. Soft. Almost like a prayer. They ate slow, respectful, not like wolves, like people who knew hunger too well. Tom leaned against the wall and watched. Didn't even realize he hadn't served himself. The older woman noticed. She broke her bread in half, held it out to him. He blinked. You needed more. She shook her head. Firm. Family shares, even with strangers. That's what her eyes said. He accepted it. And somehow, that tiny piece of bread tasted better than anything he'd eaten in years. Later that night, the problem hit him. Sleeping. There wasn't enough space. He only had 1 bed and a floor. So he tossed his blanket down near the fireplace, pointed to the bed. You take it. They refused. All of them. To polite. To proud. So after 5 minutes of awkward back and forth, he solved it the cowboy way. He stepped outside with his saddle blanket. Doors open, he said. I'll be in the barn. No arguments. Just solutions. The barn smelled like hay and dust. His old horse, Whiskey, snorted when he came in. Tom leaned against the stall and stared through the cracked boards at the cabin light. Soft shadows moved. Inside. Voices. Low. Gentle. For the first time in 15 years, his ranch didn't feel dead. Didn't feel haunted. It felt alive. And strangely, that scared him more than the war ever had. Because caring about people, that's dangerous. People leave. People die. People get taken. He built this life to avoid exactly that. So why? Why did it feel right? Morning came colder than usual. Tom woke to the smell of smoke. Shot upright, heart racing. Then remembered. The women. He rushed to the cabin. Door opened. Fire already going. And something else. Bread. Fresh bread. One of them was kneading dough on the Table dot another sweeping the floor with bundled twigs, another fetching water. Like they lived there for years dot not guests, not burdens dot just helping. He stood frozen at the doorway. Nobody had done anything for him in over a decade. He didn't even remember what that felt like. The older woman noticed him, nodded once. Good morning without words. He cleared his throat. You don't gotta do that. She shrugged. Home must work dot simple dot practical dot no drama dot no pity, just dignity. And something inside Tom cracked a little, because these weren't helpless people. They weren't charity cases. They were strong, stronger than most men he'd known. They lost everything and still woke up ready to build something new. Over the next few days, a strange rhythm formed. Tom fixed fences. They patched clothes. He hunted rabbit. They cooked stew. He chopped wood. They stacked. In need by the door dot no one talked much. Language was clumsy, but somehow they understood each other fine. Work doesn't need translation. One afternoon, he noticed something that stopped him cold. They were singing dot soft dot low dot Apache song dot sad. Beautiful dot like wind moving through canyon stone. He stood outside the window and listened. Didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling dot grief dot memory dot love. It sounded like mourning and healing at the same time. And for the first time since the war, Tom felt tears sting his eyes, because that sound, it wasn't enemy music dot, it wasn't foreign dot, it was human dot just human. And he wondered how many songs like that he'd helped silence years ago. How many homes he'd ridden past without caring. The guilt settled heavy in his chest again. But now it didn't feel paralyzing dot, it felt like something pushing him to do better dot, to protect instead of destroy. Maybe this was his chance, late in life, but still a chance. That evening, as they all sat by the fire outside, one of the younger women handed him something. A small leather pouch dot inside. A carved wooden bead dot handmade dot simple dot. She tapped her chest, then pointed at him dot family. He swallowed hard, couldn't speak. 15 years alone, and now 5 strangers had accepted him faster than his own. People ever had dot no questions dot no history dot just hard dot. And Tom realized something right then dot, something that shook him deep. Maybe, just maybe, he hadn't saved them. Maybe they were saving him. But peace never lasts long in the Old West, because far down the trail, dust was rising. Hoofbeats were coming, and the world outside the ranch wasn't nearly as kind. Not to Apache, not to anyone who helped them. And Tom Callahan was about to learn that opening your door sometimes means inviting trouble too. The dust showed up before the sound did. Tom noticed it while fixing the north fence. A thin brown cloud on the horizon dot low dot moving fast. Too steady to be wind, too straight to be cattle. Riders. His jaw tightened. Old instinct slid back into place. Like a worn saddle dot, count the shapes dot, watch the rhythm dot, measure distance dot, at least 6. Maybe 8 horses, coming from town dot, and nobody rode that hard for friendly reasons. He spat into the dirt. Damn, for 3 weeks, life had been quiet dot to quiet. He should have known it wouldn't last. Nothing good ever lasted long out here. Back at the cabin, the women were grinding corn. Soft laughter drifting through the air dot. It stopped when they saw his face. They didn't speak English much, but fear don't need translation dot. The older woman stepped forward, eyes sharp. What? Tom pointed toward the horizon. Men, horses, maybe soldiers, maybe townsfolk. Silence dot. Then he saw it. That same look they had the first day he met them. Not panic dot, recognition. Like they'd seen this ending before, too many times. One of the younger women grabbed a small bundle and clutched it to her chest dot. Another moved toward the back of the cabin, automatically dot, planning escape routes. They were used to running. That thought twisted his gut dot. Nobody should live like prey dot. Nobody dot, double quotes. Hey, Tom said softly. They looked at him. You don't run. He surprised himself saying it dot, because for years, running from people had been his whole life. But something had changed. This ranch wasn't just his anymore. And if they left, they'd be hunted again, starving again, losing again dot. No dot, not this time. Not while he still had breath in his lungs. You stay here, he said. I'll talk. The older woman studied him long and hard, like she was measuring his soul. Then she nodded once. Trust. That hit harder than any bullet, because trust from someone you once called enemy, that's heavy. That's sacred. The riders arrived 20 minutes later dot, dust coating their coats, hats low, rifles on saddles. Tom recognized two of them. Hank Miller, general store owner. Big mouth, bigger prejudice, and Deputy Ross, the kind of man who smiled too much when trouble started. Three others were ranchers. One wore an army jacket. That one worried Tom most. Hank called out first. Well, I'll be damned. Callahan's still alive. Tom leaned against the fence post casually, like this was nothing, like his heart wasn't thudding. Morning. Deputy Ross squinted toward the cabin. We heard something strange in town. Tom didn't answer. Ross continued. Folks say Apache. Women been seen near this ridge. There was. Straight to the point. Tom shrugged. Desert's big. Hank snorted. Don't play dumb. Tracks lead here. Of course they did. 5 women walking for miles ain't exactly invisible. Tom should have wiped the trail. Should have known better. Old age making him sloppy. Ross dismounted. Boots crunching gravel. You hiding them? The question hung heavy. Tom's mind raced. Lie. Tell the truth. By time, every choice had weight. If he admitted it, they dragged those women out. Like animals. Maybe worse. If he lied, they'd search anyway. He knew these men. Suspicion was their favorite hobby. So instead, he chose something else. He stalled. What if I am? The air shifted instantly. Hands near HOLSTERS. Eyes hard. Hank spat. You gone soft, Tom. After all, we did clearing these lands. Clearing. That word again, like people were weeds. Tom felt something old and ugly rise in his chest. Memories of smoke and screaming, of following orders he wished he hadn't. Yeah, he muttered. What? I said maybe I did go soft. They stared at him like he'd grown horns. Ross stepped closer. You know the law. Harboring hostile tribes. They ain't hostile. Tom snapped. To fast. To sharp. The word surprised even him. They're widows, hungry, half dead. That's it. Hank laughed. Apache's Apache. No, Tom said quietly. They're people. Silence. Uncomfortable. Like he'd spoken blasphemy, because around here, nobody said that out loud. Ross's voice dropped colder. Move aside. Tom, we'll check your cabin. And there it was, the line in the sand. If he stepped aside, everything he'd built these past weeks disappeared. If he didn't, these men might shoot him. Old Tom, the cavalry scout, he'd have stepped aside, followed orders, told himself it wasn't his problem. But the man standing here now, the one who ate bread they shared, who heard their songs, who saw their tears, that man wouldn't. He planted his boots. You ain't going near that cabin. Hank blinked. You serious? Dead serious. More serious than he'd ever been in his life. One of the ranchers muttered. He's lost his damn mind. Maybe he had. But for the first time, losing his mind felt like finding his heart. Wind moved through the cactus. Nobody spoke. 5 rifles. 1 old cowboy. Bad odds. Terrible odds. But Tom didn't reach for his gun. Didn't want blood. Didn't want another ghost on his conscience. Ross studied him carefully. You willing to die for them? Tom thought about it. About 15 empty years. About eating alone. Talking to walls. About the first time he heard laughter in his yard again. About fresh bread. Shared water. Songs at night. And suddenly, the answer felt simple. Yeah. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just truth. And truth scares people more than threats ever do. Hank cursed. This ain't right. After everything they done to us, what did they do? Tom snapped. You ever seen those women fight? Ever seen them raid? Or you just repeating stories your granddaddy told? Nobody answered, because deep down, they didn't know either. Fear's easy. Facts are harder. Ross sighed. You're making this complicated. Tom. No. Tom said. You are. Long pause. Finally, Ross motioned to the others. We'll head back, for now. Hank protested. You serious? Ross muttered. Ain't worth shooting an old fool today. They mounted up, but before leaving, Ross pointed at Tom. Army patrol rides through next week. They won't ask permission. Then they rode off, dust swallowing them whole. Tom didn't relax, didn't smile, didn't celebrate, because he knew something worse than hatred. Was paperwork. Orders. Soldiers. Who didn't think, didn't question, didn't care. Those men, they wouldn't talk. They'd just act. And when they came, it wouldn't be 6 riders. It'd be 20, maybe more. He turned toward the cabin slowly. The women were standing at the door. They'd heard everything. Seen everything. They knew. The older woman walked to him, placed her hand gently on his arm. Soft. Grateful. Sad. Like she already understood what protecting them might cost. And Tom realized something heavy. By choosing them, he hadn't just risked himself. He declared war against the world he used to belong to. No going back now. No neutral ground. It was them, or everyone else. And strangely, he didn't feel afraid. He felt clear, like for the first time in his life. He knew exactly what side he stood on. That night, the fire burned brighter. Nobody sang. Nobody laughed. Just quiet. Heavy quiet. Storm coming quiet. Tom cleaned his old rifle slowly. Not because he wanted to use it, but because sometimes peace needs teeth. He looked around the fire at the 5 women. 5 lives that trusted him. 5 lives that could disappear in seconds if he failed. And he whispered something he hadn't said in years. Not again. Not again would he stand by. Not again would he follow orders. Not again would he let fear decide who lived. If trouble came, it would meet him first. Tired. Alone. But standing. Like a damn fence post the wind couldn't knock down. Far off in the distance, a wolf howled. And for the first time in 15 years, Tom Callahan didn't feel like the loneliest man in the desert. He felt like a guardian. And guardians fight hardest of all. The week before the patrol came felt longer than the 15 years Tom lived alone. Every sunrise carried the same question. Will today be the day? He didn't say it out loud, but it sat behind every breath, behind every sip of coffee. Behind every creak of the porch boards. The women felt it too. Their hands moved faster. Their eyes scanned farther. They spoke in Apache, more than usual, quiet, urgent, like prayers stitched into words. Tom didn't understand their language, but he understood their fear, and he understood something else. Fear doesn't make you weak. Fear just tells you what you love. And Tom Callahan, he didn't like that realization, because love meant risk, and risk meant loss. He had built his life around avoiding loss. Now he was standing right in front of it. 2 days after the riders left, Tom rode down to the creek bed where the old mesquite trees grew thick. He came back with a wagon full of branches. The women didn't ask why. They just helped. They stacked the wood in front of windows. They reinforced the cabin door with planks. They dug shallow trenches behind the corral. Not deep. Not pretty. Just enough to give cover if bullets started flying. Tom watched them work and felt his throat tighten. They weren't trained soldiers. They weren't fighters like the men who used to raid ranches. They were widows. Survivors. But survival teaches you things even war can't. One afternoon, the younger woman who had given him the bead, the one Tom privately called Little Sparrow because of how quietly she moved, brought him a strip of cloth. She pointed at his arm. Bandage. She was preparing for injury before it even happened. Tom stared at the cloth. Then at her. And for a moment, he saw something that made his chest hurt. Not fear, not hatred. Just concern. For him. An old cowboy who owed them nothing and still chose to stand beside them. Tom looked away fast, pretending to inspect his rifle, because if he let himself feel too much, he might fall apart. On the 6th night, when the stars were sharp like nails in the sky, the older woman finally spoke more than a few words. She sat beside the fire, face lit by orange glow. Tom could see every line in her skin, each one a story. She tapped her own chest. Sonnet, she said. Her name. Tom nodded slowly. SAH-NEH. Double quotes. Then she pointed at the women one by one. One was Ayana, another Nita. Little Sparrow was Tala. The last was Kaya. Tom repeated the names as best he could. They smiled gently, not laughing at him, just appreciating the effort. Then Sans pointed at Tom. What name? Tom swallowed. Thomas. But folks call me Tom. She tried it. Tam. Close enough. Then Sana said a word in Apache and placed her palm on the ground. Tom didn't understand, but he felt it. A question. He hesitated. Then he answered in his own language. Why are you here? Sana looked into the fire for a long moment. Then she spoke slowly. Broken English, carrying weight like stones. Our husbands taken. Some killed. Some never come back. Tom's jaw tightened. He knew exactly what taken could mean. In this territory. She continued. We walk. We hide. We hungry. She glanced at the cabin. This place warm. Her eyes shifted back to him. You, soldier before. Tom flinched. Sana didn't accuse. She just stated it. Truth. Then she said quietly, now you. Different. Tom felt his throat burn. He stared at the fire, trying. Sana nodded. Then she said the sentence that changed him forever. You give us shelter. She placed her hand on her heart. We give you life. Tom blinked hard, because that was the truth, and truth is heavy. The next morning, it came, a sound Tom hadn't heard in years. Bugle. Faint, carried by wind, but unmistakable, military. Tom stepped onto the porch, eyes narrow. Dust rose on the far ridge again. This time, there were more. A line of horses. Uniforms catching sunlight. Carbines. Slung. Orderly. Cold. Like the world had decided to correct a mistake. Behind him, the women gathered silently. No crying. No screaming. Just stillness. That stillness broke Tom's heart. It was the stillness of people who had learned the world doesn't spare them. Tom turned and spoke calmly. You stay behind the cabin. If it goes bad, you run through the ravine. Follow it north. Don't stop till you reach the rocks. San stared at him. Then shook her head. No. Tom frowned. I'm not asking. She stepped forward, eyes fierce. We run our whole life. She touched the ground again. This home. Then she pointed at the cabin. At the fire. At him. And she said one word, clear as a rifle crack. Together. Tom's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, wanted to order, but he saw it. This was their choice too, not just his. He nodded once. All right. The patrol arrived at the fence line. 20 men, maybe 20. 2. A lieutenant rode at the front. Young, clean uniform, hard eyes. He called out, Thomas Callahan. Tom stepped forward. That's me. The lieutenant's gaze moved toward the cabin. We have reports of Apache women being sheltered here. Tom didn't deny it, didn't lie. Just stood. Yes, that simple word made the air go sharp. The lieutenant's jaw clenched. Those women are considered hostile and must be turned over to authorities. Tom's voice stayed steady. They're widows, they're Apache, they're unarmed, they're still Apache. Tom's hand slowly rose, palms open, no rifles raised, no threats. Lieutenant, Tom said quietly, if you take them, you're sending them to death. The lieutenant frowned. You don't decide that. Tom nodded. You're right. Then he said the sentence that came from deep places. I'm just asking you to look at them like human beings. The lieutenant gestured. Bring them out. Tom didn't move. Behind him, the women stepped into view. No weapons. Just 5 figures standing together, their clothes patched, faces calm. Eyes tired, and yet proud. The soldiers shifted uneasily. A few stared like they'd never seen Apache women up close without rage. The lieutenant's face hardened. You're making a mistake, Callahan. Tom's voice dropped. Maybe. He glanced back at SAH-NEH. Then forward again. But this is the first mistake in my life that feels like it might finally make something right. The lieutenant gave a sharp command. Dismount. Search the property. 2 soldiers started forward. Tom stepped in front. One of them pushed him. Tom stumbled, but stayed upright. That push snapped something inside him. Not anger, resolve. He looked the lieutenant straight in the eyes. You crossed that fence, Lieutenant, and you'll be forcing me to do something I don't want to do. The lieutenant laughed coldly. You, one old man. Tom said nothing, just reached down and lifted his rifle from where it leaned against the porch. Slow. Deliberate. Not aimed yet. Just present. The soldiers instantly raised their weapons. The women tensed. The air became a single thread about to snap. And then something unexpected happened. A voice called from the back of the patrol. Hope, an older sergeant, rode forward. Gray, mustache, sunburned face, eyes that had seen too many funerals. He looked at Tom. Then at the women, then at the lieutenant. Sir, the sergeant said carefully, these don't look like fighters. The lieutenant snapped. That's not your call. The sergeant lowered his voice. I know, but I've been in these hills 20 years. Hostiles don't stand in open like that. The lieutenant hesitated just a second, but in that second, something changed, because doubt crept into the patrol like smoke, and when soldiers doubt, orders lose power. Tom spoke softly. You take them today, you'll carry it the rest of your life. The lieutenant's eyes flicked toward the women again. Sana met his gaze, not pleading, not begging, just human. The lieutenant swallowed. His hand tightened on reins. Then he exhaled hard. You're all out of line, he muttered. And then he made the decision nobody expected. We're leaving. One soldier protested. Sir, we're leaving. The lieutenant repeated, louder. But he pointed at Tom as he turned. If any attack happens in this territory, if any settler dies, it's on your head. Tom nodded once. Ow, live with it. The patrol turned and rode off. Dust rising, bugle fading, and just like that, the world didn't crush them. Not today. Not yet. When the horses disappeared beyond the ridge, Tom's knees nearly gave out. He didn't realize he'd been holding his breath for minutes. He lowered his rifle, hands trembling. Sana stepped closer. She didn't speak. Just wrapped her arms around him. A hug. Simple. Warm. Human. Tom froze at first. He hadn't been held in years. Then his arms slowly lifted, returned the hug. His eyes shut, and the weight inside him finally cracked. A sound escaped his throat, half laugh, half sob. The women gathered around, placing hands on his shoulders, arms, back, not pitying him, holding him up. Because that's what family does. The next days were quiet again. But it wasn't the same quiet. It wasn't lonely quiet. It was peaceful quiet. Tom rode into town once, expecting trouble. People stared. Whispers followed him like flies. But nobody touched him. Nobody challenged him. Not after word spread the army had left without blood. The deputy avoided his eyes. Hank Miller spat into the dirt, but said nothing, because even hateful men understand one thing: a man willing to die for his choice is not a man you scare easily. Tom bought supplies like always, but this time he bought more. More flour. More beans. More coffee. And something else. A bowl of cloth. A small tin of sugar. Because he wasn't buying for one anymore. Weeks turned into months. The ranch changed. The cabin got an extra room. The corral expanded. A garden patch formed near the creek bed. And some nights, music returned. Soft Apache songs around the fire. But now, Tom heard laughter too. Real laughter. The kind that doesn't come from pretending. One evening, as the sun bled orange behind the mountains, Tala walked up and placed something in his hand. A small strip of leather with beads, 5 of them. One for each woman. That a 6th bead. She pointed at him. 6 together. Tom stared at it for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. Guess I got myself a family. Sana smiled. Not guess. She tapped his chest. True, and sometimes, late at night, Tom sat alone by the dying coals. Not lonely. Just thinking. Thinking of all the years he wasted running from people. Thinking of all the things he did when he wore a uniform. Thinking of how the past never really leaves you, but it can be transformed. It can be carried differently. Because maybe redemption isn't some grand heroic act. Maybe redemption is simply opening a door when your heart tells you to close it. Maybe it's feeding strangers. Maybe it's choosing humanity over fear. And maybe the Old West wasn't only built by guns. Maybe it was built by moments like that. Small. Quiet. Unrecorded. But powerful. A retired cowboy living alone until 5 widows begged for shelter, and the ranch that was once a prison of silence became a home.